Before sitcoms became safe, Martin was attitude, energy, loud comedy, and characters who could take over a room in seconds. One minute you were laughing at Martin and Gina, the next you were waiting for Pam's next comeback, Cole's next disaster. But after the laughter, the cast's real lives took turns fans never saw coming. Fame, conflict, loss, reinvention, and surprising comebacks. We find out where the stars of Martin are today. Carl Anthony Payne II as Cole Brown, Martin's lovable, slow-on-the-uptake best friend who could turn one confused look into a whole punchline. Born in 1969 in Clinton, South Carolina, he was 23 when Martin hit Fox in 1992. Cole was never the sharpest dude in Detroit, and everybody knew it, including Cole. Between his wild logic, goofy confidence, and endless roasting from Martin and Pam, Payne made cluelessness ridiculously funny without making Cole mean-spirited. Before Martin, Payne was already known as Cockroach on The Cosby Show. He later kept busy in comedy, directing, producing, and playing Miles Wilson on Tyler Perry's Young Dylan, introducing himself to a younger crowd. As of 2026, Carl Anthony Payne II is 57 and still works regularly on screen and on the comedy circuit. He also reunited with Martin Lawrence, Tisha Campbell, and the surviving cast for Martin the Reunion in 2022. Cole could walk into Martin's apartment, say something completely backwards, and somehow leave like he'd won the argument. Payne made that goofy confidence part of what gave Martin its unmistakable 90s flavor. Garrett Morris as Stan Winters, Martin's flashy, tight-fisted radio boss who always looked like he had a deal cooking somewhere. Born in 1937 in New Orleans, Louisiana, he was 55 when Stan entered Martin's chaotic world. Stan was slick, dramatic, and forever trying to stay one step ahead of Martin. Morris gave him that old-school hustler charm, making every workplace argument feel less like business and more like a comedy showdown. Long before Martin, Morris had already made history as an original cast member of Saturday Night Live. He later brought his unmistakable timing to the Jamie Foxx show, Two Broke Girls, and films such as How High. Today, at 89, Morris is still remembered for a career built on resilience. In 1994, he survived being shot during an attempted robbery, fought his way back to work, and even returned to Martin while recovering. That comeback says plenty about the man behind Stan Winters. Decades of grinding, surviving, and making people laugh finally earned Morris a Hollywood Walk of Fame star in 2024. A fitting salute to one seriously tough comedy veteran. Jon Gries as Sean McDermott, the laid-back W-Zoop guy, whose deadpan reactions were the perfect counterweight to Martin's non-stop energy. Born in 1957 in Glendale, California, he was 35 when Sean became part of the radio station crew. Sean never fought for the punchline. Martin and Stan could be going full blast, and Gries would sit there looking completely unbothered before dropping one dry line that somehow made the whole scene funnier. Gries later became one of Hollywood's ultimate I know that guy actors, with memorable turns in Napoleon Dynamite, Lost, Taken, The White Lotus, and more recently Fallout and voice work on Devil May Cry. As of 2026, Jon Gries is 69 and still bouncing between film, television, and voice roles. With new projects continuing to come his way, he's built the kind of long career most character actors would kill for. Sean was the chill dude at Was Up, who never needed to outjoke Martin. Gries understood the assignment: say less, stay cool, and let everybody else burn themselves out. Martin Lawrence as Martin Payne, the loudmouth Detroit radio host who could roast his boys, drive Gina crazy, and turn one tiny misunderstanding into 20 minutes of beautiful chaos. Born in 1965 in Frankfurt, Germany, he was 27 when Martin hit Fox. Martin was basically a whole comedy crew packed into one man. Shanae, Jerome, Mama Payne, Otis. Lawrence could switch voices, faces, and energy so fast the apartment never felt safe from the next joke. That wild sitcom run launched him into movies like Bad Boys, Blue Streak, Life, and Big Mama's House, making him one of the defining black comedy stars of the 90s and early 2000s. As of 2026, is 61 and back in a major creative groove. After Bad Boys' Ride or Die, he's producing The Varnell Hill Show and developing Young Martin, bringing pieces of his old-school comedy universe to a new generation. Martin Payne gave the 90s its own language. 3 decades later, Lawrence is still turning that same crazy energy into new projects, and the fans are still right there with him. Tisha Campbell as Gina Waters Payne, Martin's stylish, sharp-tongued girlfriend who loved him hard, but never let that giant ego take over the apartment. Born in 1968 in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, she was 23 when Gina stepped into the madness. Gina could go from sweet to boy please in half a second. Her chemistry with Martin was electric, while her friendship with Pam gave the show some of its funniest and most quotable female energy. Campbell later led My Wife and Kids and kept moving through comedy, music, voice work, and television, including Lopez vs. Lopez, Everybody Still Hates Chris, and newer film projects. As of 2026, Tisha Campbell is 57 and still moving in several lanes at once. She continues acting, performing comedy, and releasing music, including new material in 2026, while rebuilding her career on her own terms after years of financial and personal setbacks. Gina spent years checking Martin whenever he did too much. These days, Campbell is doing plenty herself, only now she's calling the shots, and that same "don't play with me" energy is still fully intact. Reginald Ballard as Brother Man, the upstairs neighbor who never knocked, never rushed, and somehow always knew when Martin had something worth eating. Born in 1965 in Galveston, Texas, he was 28 when Brother Man first started sliding into the apartment. Brother Man moved at his own speed. Slow walk, half-closed eyes, and that legendary fifth flow delivery. Ballard barely had to raise his voice because the entrance alone usually got the laugh. Outside Martin, Ballard appeared in Menace II Society, Horrible Bosses, and The Bernie Mac Show, while comedy remained a big part of his career both on-screen and on stage. These days, is 60 and still acting, with newer projects including Supermoon. Married with 2 children, he's kept working without losing the laid-back comic-style fans still connect with Brother Man. Brother Man could climb through Martin's window, raid the fridge, and leave like he was doing everybody a favor. Ballard turned one weird neighbor into pure 90s sitcom gold. Bentley Kyle Evans as Caller, one of the voices feeding Martin material during those chaotic radio show moments. Born in 1966 in Oakland, California, he was 26 when Martin began, but his real power was happening behind the camera. Evans wasn't just dropping into scenes. As the showrunner, he helped shape the rhythm, characters, and wild comedy that made Martin feel different from every other sitcom on Fox. He later co-created The Jamie Foxx Show and built shows including Love That Girl, Family Time, and In the Cut, becoming one of the quiet architects behind decades of black television comedy. This day, Bentley Kyle Evans is 60 and still building new comedy worlds. He's back working with Martin Lawrence as creator, director, and showrunner of The Varnell Hill Show, bringing one of Martin's funniest deep cuts back to life. The Caller role was tiny, but Evans' fingerprints were all over Martin. Sometimes the most important dude in the room isn't standing in front of the camera. Kalita Smith as Tracy, a guest character who brought her own confident spark into Martin's already crowded Detroit universe. Born in 1969 in Chicago, Illinois, she was in her mid-20s when she crossed paths with the crew. Even in a small appearance, Smith had that easy confidence and sharp timing that fit right in with a cast where everybody had to be ready for the next joke coming sideways. Her real breakout came later, as Wanda McCullough on The Bernie Mac Show. She then flipped the script completely, leading the zombie action series Z Nation as the tough-as-nails Roberta Warren. At present, Kalita Smith is 57. Her career has stretched from sitcoms to action and drama, including the distinction of becoming the first Black woman to lead a series on Sci-Fi, a long way from one guest spot on Martin. Tracy was only a quick stop, but Kalita Smith kept leveling up. From Detroit laughs to fighting zombies, that's one seriously wild career switch. Tracy Morgan as Hustle Man, the fast-talking street hustler who always seemed to have exactly what Martin needed, plus 3 things nobody asked for. Born in 1968 in the Bronx, New York, he was 23 when Hustle Man first popped up. Hustle Man could turn socks, sandwiches, or some completely random deal into a full sales pitch. Morgan's wild delivery made every entrance feel like Martin had accidentally opened the door to a one-man flea market. That energy later exploded on Saturday Night Live and 30 Rock, where Morgan became one of TV's most unpredictable comedy voices. He also built a strong stand-up career and moved into films like Cop Out and Coming to America. Today, at 57, Morgan is still performing after surviving a devastating 2014 highway crash that left him with serious injuries. His recovery, comeback to stand-up, and return to television became one of the biggest second acts in modern comedy. Hustle Man was always selling something, but Morgan ended up selling audiences on himself. From Martin's hallway to primetime TV, that crazy rhythm was impossible to fake, and even harder to forget. Judy Ann Elder as Nadine Waters, Gina's warm but strong-minded mother who could smile sweetly and still let Martin know he was skating on thin ice. Born in 1948 in Cleveland, Ohio, she was 44 when Nadine entered the family mix. Nadine brought a grown-up energy to all that young couple chaos. She loved Gina, tolerated Martin, and had the kind of motherly stare that could shut down a joke before Martin even finished setting it up. Elder's career stretched through stage, television, and film, including Family Matters, Murphy Brown, and The Players Club. She also worked behind the scenes as a writer, director, and theater artist, giving her career far more range than one sitcom role. Now 78, Elder has continued to champion Black theater and storytelling, drawing on decades of work both in front of audiences and behind the curtain. Her creative life has always been about more than chasing screen time. Nadine Waters had that classic mom energy, loving, patient, and absolutely not here for nonsense. Elder made every family scene feel warmer, and made Martin think twice before running his mouth. Myra J. as Caller, one of the voices who helped make Martin's radio show segments feel like the whole city of Detroit was listening in. Born in 1964 in Los Angeles, California, she was in her late 20s during the show's early run. A caller didn't need much screen time to get a laugh. The fun was in giving Martin just enough attitude, confusion, or drama over the phone to send him into another one of his over-the-top reactions. Myra J. built her name through stand-up and radio, becoming known for sharp observational humor and a conversational style that fit perfectly with the loose, fast rhythm of Martin. These days, at 62, she remains closely tied to comedy and broadcasting, with a career shaped as much by live audiences and radio listeners as by television appearances. The caller role may have been small, but that was the beauty of Martin. Even a voice on the phone could become part of the joke. Myra J. knew how to make those few seconds count. David Alan Grier as Reverend Leon Lonnie Love, the smooth-talking preacher who could make a sermon sound like stand-up and still somehow keep the room listening. Born in 1956 in Detroit, Michigan, he was 36 when the Reverend crossed into Martin's world. Leon had that big church energy, confident, theatrical, and never short on personality. Grier knew exactly how to push the character without losing the joke, turning even a simple entrance into a full performance. By then, Grier was already a breakout star from In Living Color. He later moved through Boomerang, Jumanji, Broadway, and countless TV comedies, showing he could handle everything from sketch madness to serious theater. Now 70, Grier is still one of comedy's most versatile veterans. He has earned major stage acclaim, including a Tony Award, and keeps moving between Broadway, film, and television without ever being boxed into one lane. Reverend Love may have been preaching, but Greer was always performing on another level. Put a mic in his hand, give him a crowd, and the man could turn church into comedy gold. Laura Hayes as Maddie Brown, Cole's strong-minded mother who brought a whole new level of family chaos whenever she showed up. Born in 1959 in Memphis, Tennessee, she was 33 when Maddie became part of Cole's very complicated home life. Maddie had that classic mama energy, loving, loud, and absolutely convinced she knew best. Hayes played her with enough attitude to make it clear where Cole got at least some of his wonderfully confused confidence. Hayes built her career through stand-up, television, and film, appearing in comedy clubs and projects such as The Queens of Comedy, where her sharp delivery reached a much bigger audience. At 67, she's still respected as a veteran comic who helped pave the way for Black women in stand-up. Her career has always leaned more toward live laughs and real stage presence than Hollywood celebrity hype. Maddie Brown didn't need much time to explain Cole. One look at his mother and suddenly the whole situation made sense. Hayes made that family connection feel hilarious from the jump. Yolanda Yo-Yo Whitaker as Kilolo, one of those unforgettable guest characters who walked into Martin with enough attitude to match the show's loudest personalities. Born in 1971 in Compton, California, she was 21 when Kilolo showed up. Yo-Yo already had natural swagger, so the role never felt forced. She could trade lines, hold her ground, and fit into Martin's comic rhythm without losing that real West Coast edge she brought from hip-hop. Outside the sitcom, Yo-Yo built a respected rap career with tracks like You Can't Play With My Yo-Yo, and became known for pushing female empowerment in a male-dominated hip-hop scene. Today, at 55, she remains active in music, community work, and mentoring younger artists. She has also focused on programs supporting women and youth, keeping her voice connected to more than just nostalgia. Kilolo was a quick appearance, but Yo-Yo brought something Martin always loved: big personality, real street flavor, and zero fear of being the loudest woman in the room. LaWanda Page as Evelyn Porter, the loud, fearless older woman who could walk into a scene and make everybody else seem underdressed and underprepared. Born in 1920 in Cleveland, Ohio, she was 71 when Evelyn entered Martin's chaotic world. Evelyn had that no-filter energy fans loved: bold opinions, sharp timing, and zero interest in acting her age. Page knew how to turn one dirty look or perfectly timed insult into a full laugh. Long before Martin, she had already become a comedy legend as Aunt Esther on Sanford & Son. Her stand-up roots, gospel background, and fearless delivery made her one of the most distinctive women in Black television comedy. By the late 90s, Page was still popping up in film and TV, carrying that same wicked sense of humor wherever she went. LaWanda Page died in 2002 at age 81 from complications of diabetes. Evelyn Porter didn't need to dominate an episode to leave a mark. Page brought decades of comedy muscle with her, and when she opened her mouth, everybody knew somebody was about to get cooked. Simbi Callie as Laquita, a young woman who brought a cool, playful edge into Martin's already unpredictable circle. Born in 1971 in Jackson, Mississippi, she was 21 when Laquita appeared on the series. Laquita had enough attitude to keep up with the room without trying too hard. Callie played her with a relaxed confidence that fit the show's rhythm, and made the character feel instantly at home. Callie later became best known as Nina Campbell on Third Rock from the Sun, where her dry delivery and smart reactions gave her another strong sitcom identity beyond Martin. Today, at 55, Callie remains closely associated with 90s television and still has a loyal fan base that remembers her from both comedy worlds. Her work has always leaned on timing more than flashy celebrity. Laquita may have been a smaller part of Martin, but Callie had the kind of screen ease that made a few minutes count. Sometimes all you need is the right look and the right line. Bebe Drake as Myra, one of the older women who could step into Martin's world and instantly bring a little more grown folks attitude to the mix. Born in 1940 in Sacramento, California, she was 51 when Myra appeared. Myra's strength was personality. Drake knew how to play a woman who had seen enough, heard enough, and was not about to be impressed by some young man's nonsense. Her career stretched across decades of television and film, with appearances in Boomerang, The Steve Harvey Show, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and plenty of character roles that made her a familiar face. As of 2026, Bebe Drake is 86 and remains remembered as one of those dependable performers who brought warmth, humor, and real-life texture to Black television across several generations. Myra didn't need a big storyline to feel real. Drake brought the kind of presence that said she'd already lived through worse than whatever Martin was complaining about that day. J.A. Preston as Dr. Cliff Waters, Gina's dignified father whose calm authority made Martin suddenly remember his manners, or at least try. Born in 1932 in Washington, D.C., he was 59 when Dr. Waters entered the family picture. Cliff didn't need to yell to make Martin nervous. A measured look, a serious question, and that father of the bride energy were enough to make the usually fearless Martin start watching every word coming out of his mouth. Preston had already built an impressive resume through Hill Street Blues, Dallas, and Remo Williams. He later appeared in A Few Good Men and Air Force One, often playing men whose authority felt completely natural. Now 93, Preston has long since retired from acting after a career that stretched from the late 60s into the 2000s. Away from Hollywood, he built a family life with 3 children and left behind decades of memorable character work. Dr. Waters didn't have to roast Martin. The man could make him sweat just by sitting across the table. Preston brought that classic dad energy, calm, classy, and quietly letting you know he wasn't buying the nonsense. Victoria Morcell as Woman in Crowd, one of those small faces in the background that helped make Martin's Detroit feel loud, busy, and full of personality. Born in 1963 in Madison, Wisconsin, she was 28 during her appearances on the show. It wasn't a star-making role, but Martin was great at giving even background characters a little flavor. Morcell could slip into the crowd, react to the madness, and help sell the feeling that anything could happen around Martin Payne. Her bigger cult following came later as Adrienne Delaney in the interactive horror game Phantasmagoria. After acting, she reinvented herself as Victoria Hemmingson and moved seriously into writing, earning recognition for her fiction. At 62 today, she has built a second creative life far removed from sitcom sets. Her writing has appeared in literary outlets, and her mystery thriller work won a major book pipeline prize. Proof that leaving acting didn't mean leaving storytelling. From a face in Martin's crowd to a cult game heroine and award-winning writer, Morcell took one hell of a creative detour. Sometimes the most interesting "Where Are They Now" story happens completely off camera. Elia English as Mrs. Booker, the kind of grown woman who could bring warmth, attitude, and a little church lady authority into Martin's world without breaking the comedy. Born in 1960 in Covington, Georgia, she was 32 during her appearance. English had a naturally expressive voice and the kind of timing that made even a straight reaction funny. Put her around Martin's foolishness and you could almost see the "Lord, give me strength" coming before she said a word. Her signature TV role came soon after as Aunt Helen on The Jamie Foxx Show, where she and Garrett Morris became one of the sitcom's funniest older couples. Films like Good Luck Chuck and My Sister's Keeper followed. Today, at 66, English remains closely tied to the performing arts that shaped her from the beginning. Raised in a Baptist minister's household, she studied music and drama before building a career that stretched through Broadway, television, film, singing, and dance. Mrs. Booker was only a quick stop, but Elia English had real grown folks comedy in her bones. A few years later, Aunt Helen proved exactly what happened when somebody finally gave her room to cook. Lynn Whitfield as Ellen, a poised, sophisticated woman whose presence brought a little grown-up elegance into Martin's otherwise non-stop circus. Born in 1953 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, she was 39 when Ellen appeared on the show. Ellen had the kind of calm confidence that could make Martin's usual antics look even more ridiculous. Whitfield played her with class, but never so stiff that the comedy lost its bounce. Her career only got bigger from there, with standout work in Eve's Bayou, The Josephine Baker Story, A Thin Line Between Love and Hate, and later Greenleaf, where she once again owned every room she walked into. Today, at 73, Whitfield remains one of black television and film's most respected dramatic actresses. Decades of awards, stage work, and powerhouse roles have made her a true veteran, rather than just another familiar face. Ellen was a small part of Martin, but Whitfield always had leading lady energy. Even in a quick appearance, she carried herself like the scene had already decided who the grown-up was. Thomas Mikal Ford as Tommy Strawn, Martin's smooth, laid-back best friend whose mysterious job became one of the show's longest-running jokes. Born in 1964 in Los Angeles, California, he was 27 when Tommy became part of the core crew. Tommy always looked like the responsible one. Calm, sharp, dressed right, but somehow nobody could ever figure out where he actually worked. Ford played that mystery so straight that the joke only got funnier. After Martin, Ford appeared in New York Undercover, The Parkers, and plenty of stage and film work. He also became a producer, motivational speaker, and author focused on family and personal growth. In the years before his death, Ford devoted more time to mentoring young people and speaking about education and fatherhood. Thomas Mikal Ford died in 2016 at age 52 after suffering a ruptured abdominal aneurysm. Tommy spent 5 seasons hearing, "You ain't got no job," and never once let it break his cool. Ford turned that running gag into one of the most beloved pieces of Martin history. Tichina Arnold as Pamela James, Gina's loud, fearless best friend who could roast Martin before he even finished setting up the joke. Born in 1969 in Queens, New York, she was 23 when Pam entered the picture. Pam never backed down, especially from Martin. Their insults were basically a sport, and Arnold matched Lawrence joke for joke with enough attitude to make those battles feel legendary. She later starred in Everybody Hates Chris, Survivor's Remorse, and The Neighborhood, proving Pam was only the beginning of a long sitcom run built on sharp timing and huge personality. As of 2026, Tichina Arnold is 57 and still going strong across television, music, and live appearances. She has also been open about motherhood, divorce, and rebuilding her personal life while keeping a steady place in comedy. Pam was nobody's sidekick. Arnold made sure of that from day one. Loud, funny, fearless, and always ready to drag Martin right back down to earth. Thank you for watching. Share which cast member's journey surprised you most, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more classic TV stories.